How would I define myself? I'm probably more as a conservationist and someone who wants to share conservation success stories and things we can do to help with conservation. And I would also define myself as a turtle guy. Yeah, I don't know if we had a podcast episode with Dr. Heather Smith, and
Mhm.
she talked about these prehistoric extinct turtles called baynids.
Welcome, adventurers. Want to learn more about Ryan Dumas? Buckle up and join us. To the music. Welcome, adventurers. Today we have Ryan Dumas. Why don't you introduce yourself, Ryan?
Yeah, hi. Like you said, my name's Ryan. Probably, if anyone knows me, it is probably from the Let's Talk Turtles podcast, where myself and Tom Arbor, Two Turtle Tom, host the show, and we go into a variety of topics about turtles. I'm kind of really keyed in to turtles and tortoises more than any other taxa, but I've been I was a reptile keeper and supervisor in zoos for 18 years, and I still work with wildlife as a conservation biologist now for my county park system. And I've been keeping reptiles at home for a long time as well. So I've been a part of a lot of different things with reptiles and amphibians, and I'm excited to be here tonight and talk with you. So yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, we consider reptiles amphibians, even the furry fuzzy stuff. How would you define yourself?
How would I define myself? I would probably that has evolved throughout the years, and
Mhm.
at this point in my life, I would just, I don't know, define myself probably more as a conservationist and someone who wants to share conservation success stories and things we can do to help with conservation. And I would also define myself as a turtle guy.
Okay. What is your favorite pet?
My favorite pet is probably, I have a female Florida box turtle
Mhm.
that is bursting with personality. Um, she makes me happy each and every day. I like her more than my dogs, so
Wow.
she's my favorite.
Don't tell your dogs.
Oh, I'll tell them. Those dogs, man, love them and hate them. Gosh,
Yeah,
I don't hate
we
my
have
dogs, but
two Cavachons, and the same thing. They can be really kind and great, and they can be demanding. Even the female, very much so. She if she doesn't get her Nyla bone, which is just a treat at night, she barks at it until we.
oh,
Even though she gets it some days, she barks at it. Last night she was barking at it to get it again. So they
your
can be
dog will
quite a
eat it.
challenge.
I
Pardon
have
me?
never gotten a dog to like chew on a nylabone. I've gotten them because they're always highly rated, and
Mhm.
I give them to my dogs, and they like lick the bone, and then that's it. And
Oh,
I have like
mine
three
are
or four
experts
nylabones
at
with
getting
nothing
out.
on it.
The male gets it out in 2 seconds and eats it, and
Ugh.
the females, but she sometimes will lord stuff over him, and so she just holds it in front of her and lets him come close, and then barks, which is strange because he's bigger than her and he could really take it from her, but he never does. So it's kind of strange. But anyways, that's what
That's
happens
funny.
with animals, I guess. What is your most desired exotic pet? Well, if you could have anything in the world, what would it be?
Oh, if I could legally have anything,
Mhm,
if I had, I love turtles and tortoises. They're my favorite. But
mhm,
if I had the funding and everything to work with something, I think crocodilians are
mhm.
some of the most fascinating animals on the planet, and I would love to have a facility where I say facility, I'm just talking about like a responsible and ethical setup to keep crocodilians. Which species? I don't even know. Like, I'd be cool with any of them. But
Great.
that's one of the things I miss from zoos, and I would love to be able to work with crocodilians again.
Okay, if you could have anything allow not even if it's allowable, what would it be if you on the
Hmm.
planet?
Still alive?
Yes.
um,
I
Shoot.
guess it doesn't matter. You can say whatever you want.
Yeah,
This is all about you, so
I think like the megalania would be pretty cool. That giant 20-foot Komodo relative,
Mhm.
Komodo dragon relative would be cool. So,
Wow. Many people say Komodo dragon is one of the things they'd love to have if they could,
but
but
now I think I'd change it. I don't know if
Mhm,
we had a podcast episode with Dr. Heather Smith, and
mhm.
she talked about these prehistoric extinct turtles called Baynids, and they are awesome. They're like a largish turtle with big, long, almost like rat tails. They look the reconstructed photos look pretty awesome, and maybe I'd rather go that road because that would be a lot more fun and probably safer.
I did see the commercial for that, so I actually did see the reconstructed photo. That would be very cool. What type of pets do you have at home, if you don't mind me asking? Obviously,
Well,
dogs. What kind of dog do you have?
oh, I've got 4 dogs,
Okay.
unfortunately and unfortunately, because there are times where you love having those dogs, but 4 is a lot. But 2 of them don't even count. I have a miniature dachshund, which is like my favorite dog. That is a hilarious dog all the time. We have a Chihuahua who weighs 4 pounds, and then we have a rescued pit bull, Snow. She's 10 now, and she's deaf. And then we have a doodle, a mini doodle. So.
Wow.
Uh, and then we also have a cat, and then we have a number of snakes and turtles and tortoises. So
Okay. What type of
full
snakes do you
house.
have?
I have carpet pythons is what I was into forever, but I'm running low on space, and I'm trying to give my current turtles more space.
Mhm.
So I'm kind of moving on from carpet pythons. I have some eastern rat snakes and some Okatee corn snakes are the only snakes I'll be keeping, just because they mean something to me personally. So they're going to stay around. Then those are the snakes I keep. Turtle wise, keep Florida box turtles. Just one of my favorites. Uh, Holmes hinchback tortoises, and I have a pair of pancake tortoises.
So, what has your show experience been? How many shows you been to, and when did you start going?
Mm. Well, I haven't been to too many shows recently.
Mhm.
Really been slowing down on that side. But I used to vend at the Sin City show.
Okay.
It used to be called before it was Sin City. I forget what it's called. Just the Cincinnati Reptile Show, and I've vended there in 3 different locations. They've been a little bit of everywhere, and that's the one I've been to the most. And then I usually have tried to go to the October Tinley Park Reptile Show.
Mhm.
There's a big contingency of carpet python folks there, and it's like one of the places we can all get together and kind of say hi to each other. But I haven't been in years. But I would
Okay.
really like to get down to the Daytona Reptile Show. One, because of just the history behind it. It's like that's the one that everyone always wanted to go to. In the 80s and 90s. It's also one of the best turtle shows as far as like diversity of turtles available, and it's in Florida. And
Mhm.
I love Florida when it's sunny and not hurricaney. So,
Sure, and when it's not too hot, because reptiles, as much as they need heat, they don't really do well in very high heat. So there you go. Okay,
mhm.
so what age were you when you went to your first reptile show?
19.
19.
I was not always a reptile lover.
Mhm.
I mean, always they were fine, but I didn't really get into animals until my freshman year of college, and then it kind of took off from there with reptiles.
Okay. Yeah, I always tell the story about myself and my iguana, but that my wife bought me my first year of college. I had it in the dorms, and I would, you weren't
Mm,
supposed to have him in the dorms, but
right.
he was really tiny, and I kept him in the dorms, and he escaped, and I got him back because some woman found him in the women's showers in the other side of the dorm.
I had a ball python that I hid behind my door, and yeah, I never got caught with it, but that was what I got one of those because of the movie Road Trip. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie. It's a raunchy kind of comedy movie from 2000. And in that movie, one of the guys has a pet Burmese python, and there's a ridiculous scenes. And I was like, oh my gosh, I want a snake, like a college dummy. And
Mhm.
but I was fascinated with watching that snake, and I wanted to learn more. And then I interned at the Cincinnati Zoo, and everything started rolling at that point, and that kind of led to my career. So everyone has a ball. Like a lot of people have ball pythons at some point. That was my first reptile pet, and it was pretty cool. And Samson was my ball python. He's tattooed on my arm, actually.
Wow, That's cool.
Yeah.
That's a I've had iguanas. I got the, 30 something years. I got the first couple and had them for many years.
Well, the more I got into it, I liked keeping them. I liked watching them. I loved all this aspect of care because it was so diverse and dynamic, and everything involved in kind of caring for this animal. And then I got a few more animals, and it was like what they call it, Noah's Ark kind of syndrome, where I didn't get a pair of anything. I just thought things were cool, and I got some. So I would get like the Chinese water dragon, and then a Colombian black and white tegu, which are the little crazier ones, not the
Mhm.
bigger, cooler, mellower ones. And I was like, man, it would be really cool if I could get paid to take care of reptiles. So I started looking around and saw that there were some internships at the Cincinnati Zoo, and that's just where I live. And I went and kind of I applied for it and got it, and I spent a semester with them, and it was awesome. Um, and that kind of lit the fire under me and sent me going. I finished my degree, and I worked at the Newport Aquarium down here on and off as a like part-time care help. And then when I graduated from college, I moved out to DC and worked at the National Aquarium, and then worked at the Bronx Zoo and the Mystic and Maritime Aquarium, and then came back to Cincinnati, and it was a ride, but it was amazing to do all of that. I never thought I'd leave that industry. But sometimes as you evolve as a human, your mindset changes and your priorities shift, and that's basically what happened. Is I love it. I will always support zoos and all my friends in zoos, but I wasn't getting the reward, the conservation kind of reward that I was hoping for as much as I used to. But I was getting it by being in the field, and that's kind of how I transitioned out of the zoo world into the conservation world, and I'm really loving what I'm doing now, which isn't just reptiles and amphibians. It's a little bit of everything,
So what exactly are you doing now?
a variety of things. So, one of the things I do is I manage our deer management. So, for those of you who don't know, Ohio is overrun with deer in most counties, especially the more populated counties. Hamilton County is no exception. And so I manage our park system's deer management, which includes running a bow hunting program with over 350 hunters. And why this is important is because when deer are overrun, they run amok on our forests. They eat all the young, and they all the young trees. The oak and hickory forests aren't regenerating like they should be. Maple and other trees overtake and change the entire composition of the forest. So much so that there's less leaf litter, and the invasive. All our worms, our earthworms, are invasive in America. There are no native earthworms. They eat all the leaf litter, and now you're taking stuff away from ground nesting birds. They can't nest anymore, and it just goes so on and so on. So you'd never think that overloaded deer would change the soil composure and then stop nesting birds. So working with that, as well as invasive plant management, as well as I do a lot with vernal pools, with amphibians and wetland management. One of the, like, for example, so I kind of do a lot of surveys and a lot of I wouldn't necessarily call it research, but kind of research, yeah. And I use the data that I collect to help influence management decisions. So recently, this summer I've been doing rough green snake surveys in our park systems, and I found a couple populations, and now we are going to manage the way we use herbicides and stuff in that area to make sure that we do not contribute to the decline of the rough green snake, which is a species of concern in Ohio, and it's declining everywhere. But some simple steps that we can take to help get what we need to get done to reach our conservation goals, but also do it the right way and ethically.
That's awesome. That's a dream job for many people, I think. But so how did you
I'm
get
enjoying.
that job? Just your experience
I,
and
I don't even know. It's like when you're a zookeeper for 18 years, you start thinking like, what does this skill set even transfer to? Where can I apply this? And I was having a hard time with it. But the zoo, when I was there, it was kind enough to let me try to influence and initiate some field programs on some of the property that the zoo owns. Like they own a big um, farm, like a 600-acre piece of property in Warren County, which is just north of us, and I was able to do amphibian surveys and water quality studies on restored wetlands out there. And I think that's really what kind of led me to getting a little more experience. And then the park system I worked for, they had a wildlife biologist, so it's a conservation biologist, but I'm the wildlife dedicated guy. They were looking for somebody with more herp experience because they had some data gaps in that in their data with a lot, mostly reptiles and amphibians, and that just so happened to be where I was strongest. And however, I must have made the right people, or must have made some people happy, because they offered me the position, and it really worked out. And I just know I'm fortunate, and because I am incredibly happy and rewarded with this position. Um, Never thought I would be in this position, but here I am, and I dig it.
That's great. It's incredible when you meet people who really love their job. I love mine. I'm a physician, but I love it. Many of us don't, but I
Yeah,
love being able to meet people and do things, and I keep changing different types of jobs. I was in the urgent care industry. I'm a family physician, but I was in I had my own office. I went to the urgent care industry. I'm now in occupational medicine and doing a lot of that type of stuff. But I just love what I do, and I don't think I'm ever going to retire. But I don't, I don't not take my days off. So there you go.
yeah.
It's not that I love it that much, but anyways,
Well, that's awesome. I'm glad to hear you love your job too, because you are right. There's not a ton of people. There are people. There's plenty of people, but it's not a lot.
mhm. It's something that's hard to do and to figure out. And I lucked into it. I was looking. I don't even think I've ever said this on the podcast. I was looking to be a dentist, and I because my next door neighbor was a left-handed dentist, and I'm left-handed, and he was going to retire when I was ready, and I was all into going to Ohio State for dental school. And my grandma knew the dean, and I know all this other nonsense that wouldn't help me at all. But it was kind of one of those. And I went in, and I said, I don't want to do this the rest of my life, look at people's mouths. And so I dropped into regular medicine and lucked out, and I was able to go and been it's been a great thing for me ever since. So I really like doing it. So okay,
Heck yeah, man.
tell us about your family.
Yeah, I'm a husband and a father. Got two awesome kids, Peter and Emmy, and my wife Rebecca. And couldn't be happier. I'm a lucky human. I'm as I look back, I'm always like fascinated with things like this because I don't deserve any of this, and I'm just very fortunate to have these folks in my life. So they're incredible. They're growing, and um, being a father is one of the tougher, and like being a parent in general is like a roller coaster. The
Hmm.
highs are so high, but the lows are just like this morning. I drop my daughter off, and my son's still asleep, and I carry him in. He's sleeping on my shoulder, and you're just like, oh, like this are like the moments that you remember and you cherish, because I'm not always gonna be able to hold him. An hour and a half later, like he's like screaming and yelling at me, throwing a tantrum because one of his socks that he doesn't like the way it feels, and he's just like, oh my gosh, like it's amazing what a child can do to you, the emotional gamut that they can put you through. But it's worth it. It's worth it for sure.
Absolutely. My wife and I have been married 30 years and have 5 kids. The fifth one is now in college.
Wow.
I have a son and 4 daughters after that. So son's the oldest. The daughter's getting married in a couple weeks.
Oh wow.
The son is already engaged. He's 26. She's 24. They go on the twos. It's 18, 20, and 22. And my as many people in the ventures that watch the show know, my fourth kid is severely disabled and not capable of speaking and tube fed, but she's the light of our life and loves going to all these reptile shows and doing all kinds of different stuff with us, and we take her everywhere. So we got kind of a kid for life, but we don't mind her being part of the team. So but the ups and downs, they go up and they go down, and if we didn't have them, that's why we got puppies, because two of our kids left and went on their own. We got two puppies, and last year's Christmas we actually had the five of us without the two oldest and the two puppies in there. Like, and my daughter said, "What, did you replace us with puppies?" I'm like, "Well, you can crate them,
Yeah.
but I mean, I'm sure you could crate kids, but there'd be all kinds of issues with people coming
Yeah,
by."
I think it's frowned upon, but like,
Yes.
the-
All right. So let's talk about the podcast. Let's talk turtles. What's that about?
oh, it started in the pandemic, like everybody during the COVID year. And I had started making some YouTube videos, and I was pumping those out. Not like Tom. Tom's got it going, but I didn't really put too much effort into it. And then I put some effort into it, but I don't know. It was a lot of work to edit videos and whatnot. And I was like, you know what? I love to talk. People tell me I talk too much. Maybe I should start a podcast. And it started with my wife and I. So if you listen to the earlier episodes of Let's Talk Turtles, you'll hear Rebecca and myself talking. And then usually the kids have a cameo in there. It was like a family thing we did. And then once the pandemic, I wouldn't say is over, but once we got through the thick of it, she kind of lost interest, we'll just say, or didn't have time to devote to it. And it was a weird timing because Tom had reached out and like, I'd love to be on, I'd love to talk. And I was like, sure, let's have you on. I'll give you an interview and we'll do that. I think he was our first guest as a on the podcast, and it was great. And so I was like, hey, would you like? My wife is kind of ducking out, and I would love to have a co-host. Would you like to come on? And he was like, sure, man. Really excited, and I think we have really good chemistry, and I think we have a good dynamic. And so the show has evolved in over the course of its tenure. Um, Now we kind of just want to talk anything turtle, good, bad, ugly, awesome. Just share information and get a lot of different perspectives, because there are several podcasts that I've listened to where it's like every time you listen to it, it's the same. It's just like people chumming each other up all the time, and which is fine. That's just not what I wanted to do. And I wanted to have some episodes like that, but I also wanted to talk about things that are a little tougher, a little more, I wouldn't say controversial, because, we base anything we talk about on facts and evidence, but it's not always easy to hear those things. And I think it's important to talk about those. So we have very conservation based, realistic, evidence based conversations from a variety of people. And I really love where it's gone. I think we're really trying to push the envelope and help people, guide people to think about the impacts that everything you do has on wildlife and conservation. So maybe a little deeper explanation than you had intended, but that was a long-winded
No,
answer.
no, we just want to learn about you. That's why you're here. And Tom is a perfect. In fact, it's crazy that his name is Tom Arbor because he's into trees and all that kind of stuff, as
I
well
know,
as
how
turtles.
hilarious.
It's so how perfect is his last name? But and all his what he's done throughout Ohio and the different areas and the conservation stuff he did for the state, that gives you guys perfect background to talk about this stuff. So it's really neat that you have a podcast and the two of you got together and you're doing it, and that's really great. Yeah, I know this podcast is all about people, but we have a live show. Tom's been on it multiple times. It's just kind of a free flowing whatever I feel like talking about that week, and it's kind of one of those buddies kind of things. Some days, weeks I don't even have a topic, but somehow we get 45 minutes out of no topic at all. Other times it's it's very serious stuff. We've talked about conservation. We've had people on that have talked about different animals and different wildlife and how we deal with stuff and what kind of serious topics. So it kind of goes from one to the other. But yeah, Tom's been on the podcast twice. So if anyone wants to listen to what Tom's about, I think he's podcast number 4 and 25. So that's off the top of my head, but you can just look it up. There's only 25 podcasts so far done by me, so you can figure that out. All right. Do you have anything to do with the TTPG?
Um, I'm not too involved in it. I have a lot of
Okay.
friends who are in it,
Mhm,
and I love, you know, most of what they do. It's a great organization. They
mhm,
pull people together,
mhm.
and they put the emphasis on keeping and breeding turtles, which a lot of times is necessary, um, for keeping a species around.
So, what are you currently up to? What is your current plan or thing that you're working on outside of work, or is work the and your children
Well,
and your dogs and whatever
I know,
else?
yeah. It's like one of those things where anything I'm involved in is after work, outside of work, and outside of family. So it's time. Um, Usually, I spend time after hours or something when the kids are sleeping or close to
Mhm.
that when I'm trying to invest into it. But I used to breed and sell animals, and I still do a little bit. And but I've really kind of grown away from that. I really do not like selling animals. I don't have anything wrong with it. I just would rather not. So
I don't know that anyone who likes to sell them. I know. I mean, even the
yeah.
people that work at are at all the reptile shows, the ones that are at 4 or 5 of them across the state, because there's bunches of them across the state. Here in Ohio, they have monthly. Other states are
Hmm.
every couple months and what have you. But no, I don't really know anybody likes to sell them. I got to the point where I was breeding them, but then I would just keep them, and
Yeah.
then you run out of room. I mean, I've got a huge basement, but then you run out of room and you have to do stuff. So then
Hmm.
I just when the pandemic hit, I just stopped breeding my panthers and all this other stuff I had planned to do because I just didn't want to sell them. So it's a
Yeah.
challenge. So. But it's neat to see the babies and grow up. But what are you gonna do with the adults? That's the question. And you have to make sure there's people there to take care of them. So.
Yeah, anymore, I would much rather find someone who is into the species and just either sell them really, really inexpensively to the right person, or just give them to somebody who's really into them and will help be a champion for that species. I get way more satisfaction out of that.
Yeah, and the other thing is, I found, I mostly was breeding chameleons, and people don't do very well with chameleons unless they really have some expertise.
That's true.
It's not big. It's just, but you have to do the right stuff. You have to have the right
Hmm.
climate, and it's different than a pet like dog or what have you. You just have it in your house and feed and water it, and that's good. But so then I would just not really want to sell to anybody. Just
Yeah,
I'm not going to sell to you, and people will get mad at me. But you have to meet the chops of being able to do it, and I'm not going to send a pet anywhere.
yeah. I mean, I'm right there with you. I've turned down sales before just because I wasn't jiving with the answers
Hmm.
that I was getting, and I don't ask like difficult
Hmm.
questions. Sometimes I don't even ask questions. Usually have somewhat known the person
Hmm.
who wants to buy something, but I have definitely turned it down because I didn't like the vibe I was getting, or I did a little stalking on their profile and was like, I'm just not contributing to this, um, and that's what makes it tough for a seller. So yeah, I'm kind of moving away from that, and really I put up more of my energy into the podcast
Hmm.
and the website.
That's great. What's the website?
It's radreptiles.com, but
Okay.
rad reptiles.com, not the word, the actual hyphen. And I'm kind of designing. I've been working on a little bit, slowly but surely. Just I'd rather be a hub for resources and information. So I do like on the blog section. I was doing blogs weekly. I did a bunch of them, and then when I switched jobs last summer, like I just did not have the time to keep up with it. And I had some guest blogs on there. They're all there, so it's really great articles. I think not just me, but from other folks. But now I do the for about a month and a half, 2 months or so. I've been aggregating turtle news. Any news that involves a turtle or tortoise, I've been putting it on the website twice a week on Mondays and Thursdays. Just for a little break, give people an idea of what happened in the turtle world over the weekend and what's happened during the middle of their week when they want to take a break from work and read a little bit about turtles. Just trying to share the information and increase some traffic, because ultimately I would like to continue to develop that website, and I've got some aspirations for for the website that I have to start building on. So I need to increase some traffic, and it's not a monetary
Mhm.
aspiration; it's a give back conservation aspiration.
That's
Um,
great. That's great to hear.
so
I'm going to check that out. I haven't taken a chance to look at that. So rad reptiles, rad-reptiles,
mhm.
.com, is it? Okay.
Yep, and you can see all of Tom and I, all of our Let's Talk Turtles episodes are on there and things like that. So
Mhm. So where else can you find your Let's Talk Turtles? I've seen them on YouTube. Are they other places?
yeah, Let's Talk Turtles podcast Facebook group is another group we're trying to grow, grassroots style, just getting people to let folks know about it and grow, so we can have meaningful discussions and share things that aren't always shared, like I was saying earlier, but also share successes and just enjoy each other's company, be respectful, and talk turtles, basically. So you can definitely catch it there. You can catch the podcast on any regular provider, whether it's Spotify.
Spotify, Apple, all those
Yep,
others people.
everything you can catch it there.
Mhm.
Yep.
Great. That's nice. Yeah, this podcast is on YouTube as Spotify and all those others. So you'll see this here once we get this done. All right. What else can you tell us about yourself?
Man, I'm pretty boring. I think when it comes down to it, I don't really have a whole lot going on. It's if I'm not at work, then I'm hanging out with my family doing something, or if I'm not that, then I'm usually hanging out with the turtles and tortoises. But I guess one non-reptile related thing about me is I'm a big time football fan. I'm a huge Kansas City Chiefs fan. Have been since like the early '90s. Ever since Joe Montana was traded to the Chiefs, 1993. I've been a Chiefs fan.
Was that the
Um,
the reason that caused you to go to the Chiefs, or what was the?
yeah, yeah. So I was raised and still am a Notre Dame fan for college
Mhm,
football, and so Joe Montana was my favorite player
mhm.
ever. Now it's Mahomes. He's right up there with Montana for me. So I was a Niners fan, and and then when he got traded, I followed Joe instead of stayed with the Niners. So because I was such a big fan of him as an individual, and then yeah, I've been a big Chiefs fan, and it was a terrible 20 25 years, and then recently it's not been that terrible,
Yeah,
as
I
the Chiefs
guess.
have won
So,
won three
living
out of
in
the last five
Cincinnati,
Super
it's
Bowls here.
been a little short of, good football down there until most recently, but,
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
the Cincinnati Bengals were called the Bungles for a long, long time, and that was
Yeah,
also why the Chiefs were also bad, so, um,
yeah, yep.
it could be a big challenge, but, yeah, I'm very much a huge football fan, and I also like, Notre Dame. I'm a Ohio State fan, um,
Okay.
but, I didn't actually ever go to Ohio State, technically. I My mom was pregnant with me when she was walking around in, physical therapy school, so, I kid that that was my first college, but that was before I was born, so there you go.
That's funny. Oh,
But
good. I'm glad I'm talking with another big football fan.
what else do you wanna tell the adventures about you?
Yeah, it's just such a big question, right?
I know.
I mean, ultimately, I'm just a dude who really likes wildlife and
Mhm,
has really grown to love turtles and tortoises over the year. I
mhm.
don't mind talking about my family, but like if you follow me on Instagram or Facebook or anything like that, I rarely bring them up because I do like to keep. I'm not like I'm not talking about them, but I do keep my family pretty private
Sure.
because I like
That's
to keep that
important, especially at
separation.
their
Yeah,
ages. Yeah.
yeah, exactly, exactly. So if you see me, like some people are surprised that I'm even married. I think because I never even my wife has never I never mention her on there, not for lack of loving her for sure, but but yeah, I mean, I'm just a turtle loving dude. I want to give back, and I'm constantly looking for ways to do that. And sometimes that is sharing information, like I'm trying to do in the podcast and on the website, and sometimes that is literally doing turtle surveys to make sure that if we put a development somewhere that it's not going to ruin a turtle community in like a slough community by the river. So I just that's what I want to spend my time doing. If it's not family related, I want to give back somehow to our wild counterparts.
So how did the love of turtles come about?
It's funny. They kind of I've always loved turtles, and I didn't even realize it until recently. But when I was a kid, my family used to go to Sea Isle City in New Jersey every year, and they're known for having like diamondback terrapins like during the breeding season just come out to lay their eggs and stuff just all over the roads, and they're trying to stop all this mortality, these road mortalities. And so they had a big turtle festival, and they had a coloring book called Sarah the Sea Isle Turtle. She was the size of a cereal bowl, and they kind of made you kind of fall in love with like a single character, and that helped you care about turtles a little more. But I kind of had forgotten about that forever because my family hadn't gone to Sea Isle City in like 20 years probably. And recently, Jason from Rum Weather Reptiles, he's in New Jersey. He sent me a picture on Instagram. Actually, I'm wearing the shirt right now from I just got it today, and I was like, oh my gosh. He sent me the shirt from that festival. He picked it up for me, and then he sent me a Rum Weather Reptile T-shirt. Just totally nice dude. I was like, I'll pay you for all of this. He's like, absolutely not. Here you go. But he also sent me 2 copies of the coloring book that I remembered from the kid of coloring. So um, just like it's just reminding me that I've liked turtles for a lot longer than I thought. So maybe that was just planted in the back of my head, waiting for me to get older to get back into turtles. But it wasn't until probably 2017, 2018 that I started really like working with turtles more than anything else. And I think a lot of that was because it was a little more fun for the kids to look at than snakes. Um, so it kind of just led me there. And then it just took off. And then you start seeing like the peril that turtles are in the wild. And it just kind of triggers you to do something to give back to conservation of those species.
That's incredible. Yeah, that's great. Um, Turtles and tortoises, as I talk with Tom all the time, no one ever really hates them.
Mm-mm.
People just they're just not anything. They don't bite you. I mean, I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure some big sulcatas, if they're mad, could probably do or something.
Mm-hmm.
Galapagos could do something bad, but they don't. They're just benign things that just move and eat and it's we have redfoots and my wife always goes out and gets some dandelions from the yard
Mm-hmm.
or whatever other flower seems to be growing and they run right to you and eat it even if you give them their normal foods and so they're just so fun to have so yeah I have a bunch of redfoots I got from the local rescue but we have
Heck
one
yeah.
that we get from the beginning so my daughters but he's the only one with the normal shell because the rescues end up getting ones that have been pyramiding. But and he was down
Yep.
with my chameleons for a long time, so he had plenty of moisture in his air. And I don't know if that's what did it, but we fed him well and we kept him moist. So there you go.
It's amazing what a little love can do, right?
Yeah, exactly. All
Yeah, it's a
right.
great point. Like, do you know any like if someone says they don't like turtles, that's a red flag to me. It's hard to meet somebody who's like, no, I just don't like turtles. It's kind
Right.
of floored.
Snakes,
Like if you,
spiders, even reptiles, even lizards, they don't like them. But
mm-hmm,
turtles, it's
yeah,
really that'd be very strange.
most folks don't even know turtles are reptiles because they like them. Most
Hmm.
people don't. Like, the average person does not like reptiles. They're like, but I like turtles, and you're like, yeah, well,
Mhm.
those are reptiles. No way.
Yes. We went into depth about the classifications of different
Mm.
reptiles and how turtles and tortoises fall into that with Tom last episode. So I won't bore the listeners with it again. But I was excited, but I think I probably put too much of it on the podcast. You never get too much of that, but we
No,
were
what do they
doing
say?
all kinds of classification.
Turtles and tortoises are more closely related to birds than they are to snakes and lizards.
So how does anyone reach you if they want to get a hold of you and talk turtles with you?
Yeah, I think one thing I didn't mention was the company that I've always bred and sold reptiles on has been Rad Reptiles, which is just my initials. It kind of worked out that way. And so if you can find me on Facebook, Rad Reptiles or Ryan Dumas, that's fine. Instagram, Rad Reptiles there. And then really on Facebook, please consider joining the Let's Talk Turtles podcast Facebook group because we have a lot of good conversations, discussions on there as well. But any one of those, or go to the website, rad-reptiles.com. Like, I'm pretty easy to find. I don't think I hide anything like how to get in touch with me on there. So feel free to message. Don't hesitate to message me if you want to talk turtles or got a good idea for a podcast, or if you got a good idea and want to come on. That's fine. Let me know.
Great. Sounds awesome. All right. Thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. It's nice to speak with you, Sean. And
Mm,
I've listened a bunch and just never really had a chance to say hi. So I'm really happy we had this opportunity. Another Ohio guy.
If you enjoyed this adventure and want to be alerted when more are available, please click the subscribe and maybe even the bell button. Thank you.